We translate global chaos into instructions for capital.
A very warm welcome to everyone, dear viewers of our social media platforms and the highly valued clients of our Era of Change analytical agency. Today we are going to talk mostly about practical matters, about pleasant things, good things, and staying positive, right? We are going to spend the whole day today, as the saying goes, discussing positive things. But they are only partially positive, as always, in the sense that for us, they are certainly positive, we'll profit from them. But for ordinary people, these are quite terrible things. Now, why is that? Because the economy as well is basically like just one side of the same coin. On one side, it is excellent, but on the other side, not so much. Now, when it comes to the matter of which side the person who placed their bet will be on, well, that truly is the ultimate question. Those who watch us and take active steps, taking initiative, are unlikely to go under in the next few years. But as for the rest, well, I can really only offer my sympathy. Let us begin by considering the fundamental fact that basically, if we were to summarize all of this into one major central point, what exactly is the essence of the good news that we are discussing? It is my personal belief that the Russian state, and by the way, not just the Russian one, but also the US and others, have basically determined exactly how to navigate their way out of the current crisis. Well, at least each of them is doing so in their own unique way. And so today we are going to analyze how to make money on these things.
Our weekly trading results.
First, let's start with exactly what is currently happening in our markets, what is taking place in the international arena, what is happening across the ocean, over the hill, as we often like to say. And this is very important. Why is that? Because what is happening there right now will determine how the Russian stock exchange is going to be performing, for example, or how the exchanges in India, China, and so on will be performing. Consequently, one of the important and significant milestones that is scheduled to happen here in the middle of June. As I have said before, you must remember that the month of June was always expected to be quite volatile and a truly decisive one for us all. Well, first of all, we had that major Federal Reserve meeting. They certainly chose a very hawkish path there, led specifically by this guy, and this significant shift will surely mark a brand new beginning for the implementation of a certain new policy. Although, to be honest, the Federal Reserve actually has little influence on the markets. Why is that? Well, everyone thinks that the Federal Reserve actually goes and prints money, and then all that money goes into the market. No, they are, as Elon Musk famously said, merely and strictly managing the entire economy while looking in the rearview mirror of a car, and a pre-recorded one at that. That is to say, they do it after the fact, so to speak. When certain events happen, that is precisely when they enter the market and start reacting. So, as is usually the case, they are running quite late. But then, well, given Donald Trump's eccentric figure, he might try to act ahead of the curve, but in fact, no. So anyway, and what are we waiting for on the 16th? Well, first of all, prominent figures such as Elon Musk and several others have recently decided to officially launch the public listing of their companies on the stock exchange. This means they want to give everyday individual investors the unique chance to buy shares of his ambitious brainchild, his innovative space exploration brainchild, let's call it that. And as I've already written in an article on the website, you know how this is going to end for us. So consider the coincidence of the scheduled Federal Reserve meeting. On the 12th, we will finally have this new listing, which is well open and accessible to every investor, the most accessible one, I would even say. And so many people will come out, pay their hard-earned money, and they will be left with just these worthless and empty wrappers. On one hand, this will initially provide an upward boost to the stock market, and a gradual reallocation and movement from some assets to others will begin, primarily because there is currently a limited amount of money in the market, so to speak. But on the other hand, in fact, we will soon see the beginning of the very first distribution of substantial capital. And I'll draw your attention today. I want you to listen to me very carefully today. The state, like the United States of America, as I have previously stated, Russia and the United States are two closely related sister states. I feel that I wasn't heard very well back then during the last program, and I said, look, Trump is clearly heading towards a full dictatorship. First, he'll set it up both politically and financially. And second, they have even decided to solve their massive money problems in that exact same way. They decided to do it in exactly the same way. How is it the same? Look here. When Elon Musk starts selling his significant shares, he'll take the money from large-scale investment funds. And those funds will take that money from the retirement and pension funds of everyday Americans. They'll then commence buying his shares with all of that money. That is, the reallocation in the funds happens automatically. Including such large stocks in these funds automatically leads to the purchase of his shares. If he and the various people around him who bought or are currently holding these shares on, well, let's say the early pre-market or long before they finally went public, decide, and they inevitably will decide, to liquidate their holdings and dump them on the unsuspecting crowd. They'll sell them those shares, which they don't actually need at all, take the hard-earned money from those ordinary everyday Americans, pocket it for themselves, and simply go about their business. In Europe, by the way, no less interesting and potentially turbulent times are coming our way, basically in the very near future. There is a redistribution going on, a major redistribution of industrial enterprises and so on. Their militarization is underway and so forth. Oh, so many tears will be shed over those specific funds, including pension funds. You are going to see this in the next 10 years. In 5 years, you will already see the first changes. There is the increase in the retirement age. And all of that, basically, it is going to be a circus just like the Russian one. I have warned you basically, and from here on, it is up to you. Since we have gathered here to speculate on all these things, well, regarding the United States of America, we can say the following about the markets and the forecast. So what do I see? I see that can we reach 8,000 on the S&P? Yes, perhaps. I would not even be surprised. If suddenly, amidst this hype, the launches of things like SpaceX and all the others or whatever they have planned, I looked at several companies, by the way, they will come out simultaneously, not necessarily big ones, there will be some small ones too. They could also participate in this grand redistribution. During June and I think even July, we might still see some growth, meaning the market will absorb it all. And after that, my forecast remains unchanged. I am expecting 4,000 on the S&P. Regarding gold, we can see the DXY index here. Look at the chart. See how it is stalling? It is forming this kind of technical figure called a diamond. It is a reversal pattern. Regardless of exactly how long they stall at this level, the dollar typically tends to skyrocket afterward. And if that happens, and our forecast is 120 for the DXY index, we are likely to witness a collapse of emerging market currencies. We will see stock markets falling and precious metals falling significantly.
Visit the Era of Change website or app to subscribe using credit cards or cryptocurrency.
Even though you might say you have not seen it, I have an article there stating that I expect gold to go above 8,000. I will put it vaguely so as not to reveal the company's trade secrets. Per troy ounce? Does that actually mean right from here? It certainly could be the case. But I am still more inclined to think that first we will see a fairly significant market correction. And as one of the primary answers, by the way, regarding exactly how residents of the United States, and particularly those living in Europe and so on, should behave in this climate, I will say the following to you, my friends. If you now see such a sharp and sudden market drop occurring according to our forecast, the very first thing I personally would put all my available funds into, down to the very last penny of my remaining cash. These will be tangible physical metals, specifically gold and even more so silver. Why? First, the new cycle will be industrial and silver will grow. Does this mean, by the way, that you should run out and buy silver right away? No, it usually grows at the end of the cycle. So it doesn't necessarily have to be done immediately. You can buy it right now or wait for a reversal pattern to form, but the fact of the matter remains. Why? My dear friends, I am truly afraid that you, dear Americans, you, dear Europeans and citizens of many other nations across the globe, are standing right on the precipice of witnessing a massive paradigm shift in financial relations. That is to say, physical cash will most likely gradually disappear and eventually fade into complete oblivion.
For your convenience, we've introduced Dark Mode, better eye comfort with just one click.
The form of money is changing. Stablecoins are rapidly replacing traditional fiat currencies, and regular currency, it seems, will be devalued to such an extreme and staggering extent that the hyperinflation of the German Weimar Republic of the early 20th century will seem like a mere pale copy. Therefore, you absolutely need to understand a fundamental and crucial concept. Money is not simply these physical pieces of paper with portraits of presidents or images of cities or whatever else on them. Money is a store of value that can be effectively carried through time. Only values can be carried through time. Eternal ones, like gold, for example. Consider the example of precious metals like silver. You can take a gold coin from the ancient times of Troy and go sell it right now, even if it is just by its weight. Try selling some candy wrappers from the turn of the century from any country, even developed ones. No, you won't sell them. They won't take them. That's just a very brief summary. The economic forecasts are all remarkably accurate. We are now expecting a major financial crash, a severe deflationary shock, and then a prolonged inflationary shock that will overwhelm and dismantle the entire global monetary system. We will see hegemons, currencies, and so on swapping places. I'll be betting on 3 assets. First, crypto assets. Second, real estate. Third, gold and silver. That is my personal and direct response to what I expect to be seeing very soon. It is the complete and total collapse of the long-standing old empire.
Check out our regular reports in the Realized Forecast section on the Era of Change website.
I'm doing it right now, and I'll be continuing to do it over the next few quarters or even the many years that lie ahead of us. And there is one final thought I'd really like to share with you all now. You know, I was sitting and deliberating yesterday, and this final thought is my 5-minute segment, my own deeply personal take, let's call it. In this segment last time, we talked about the vital importance of physical health and your mental mindfulness, but today I'd like to discuss a very crucial subject that I believe is truly significant for everyone. I've been thinking lately about the fact that I'm in my 40s now. I've been realizing it's getting much harder for me these days, for example, to work out at the gym or do any intense exercise that I used to handle so easily. I wondered how will I think when I'm 80 years old? Well, let's say 70 even, 70, 75. And I tried this on for size and came to the realization that I would of course like to talk to my 80-year-old self, if I ever even live to reach that age, which I truly highly doubt. So, if I actually reach that age, I would want to ask myself, fundamentally, how do you think about life now? What's on your mind? Today I want to ask you this question sociologically, but not just, like, I'll tell you, Nikolai, what I think. No. Instead, today we're going to, so to speak, plant a mine under the system of social relations that's ruining us. Just take a moment to really think about it. You're 80. A person tends to instinctively reject anything that's incomprehensible or completely foreign, otherworldly, right? Cells, cancer cells in the body which want to live forever. The body actively works to destroy them. So the question I asked myself was, I'm 80 years old. What values will I live by? Well, most likely, to be honest, I'll be going on relaxing fishing trips, chatting away in the yard with other retirees just like me, playing long games of dominoes probably, or something along those lines, and doing some daily crossword puzzles. Maybe I'll be playing video games just like I dreamed of when I was a little kid. I'll grow up and play video games all day long, eating delicious ice cream, sweet pastries, and all that. With simple things like that, a person lives out their days, slowly preparing for the transition to a completely different world. But then I take a close look at the complex system of modern global relations, where we see that the average prominent leader, such as those currently in power in Russia, China, or the United States, is already reaching the advanced age of 80 years old. And these individuals, they frequently go to these online forums, they make these various statements and so on. I'm not saying it is bad. I'm not saying they are crazy or anything like that. No. I'm just trying to understand one very simple thing. An extraordinary individual who, at the age of 80 years old, is trying to do every single one of those demanding tasks is certainly not the same kind of person that I am today. I certainly wouldn't consider entering the world of politics at this stage of my life, obviously. But when I look at them and see what they are managing to achieve at their age and the incredible things they do every single day, I just couldn't see myself doing it, no. I want you to really take a moment to just think about it and honestly answer this difficult question for me. If you were standing there at 80 years old, would you truly be willing to send thousands of young people off to a violent war, or perhaps choose to start devastating trade wars? Would you really be comfortable putting those around you and the entire nation through all kinds of painful trials and tribulations like that? And anyway, what exactly is the underlying motivation of every single one of these people at the forum, constantly telling one another, oh, now you can stay young until you're 150 years old? I could scarcely bring myself to believe what I was hearing. This is simply because I deeply and fundamentally understand the complex and multifaceted perspective of what these influential individuals are thinking and exactly how they meticulously plan to construct the very foundation of your and our collective future. Well, there's probably a law against that. Are you supposed to retire for your health and mind? Then retire. There is no need for you to keep making up special exceptions for yourself, otherwise you might eventually become like a cancer cell. Please understand those were simply my own personal reflections. And if you honestly believe that a ruler can actually remain in a position of power until the age of 150, as long as they perform their duties and responsibilities well, then make sure to write that down too. I really want to see a thorough sociological cross-section of our society today. Am I truly the only person who believes that a country should be led by individuals who are not only highly capable and intellectually sharp, but also full of energy and completely unaffected by the various changes that come with age, or could I be mistaken in this view? The critical issue currently on the global agenda isn't actually confined to just one specific nation or region. In fact, it is a widespread and growing trend that we are seeing manifest in many different parts of the world today, affecting how we think about leadership on a global scale. And I just don't understand why the powerful global elites, while I can still understand the position of an absolute supreme ruler or a high-ranking president, why, due to certain complex events like strategic military actions or their sheer indispensability, for some deeply charismatic, historically significant, or fundamentally important reason, they maintain such control. But the government itself, especially the people on the lower rungs, down below, they are all nearly 80 years old there. These are very old men who are merely low-level functionaries. They are just simple functionaries, people who are supposed to carry out this or that specific request or administrative order and so on. They are already visibly struggling just to speak. Just take a look at Joe Biden. He was almost carried out feet first from that steep airplane boarding ramp. Now take a good look at this 80-year-old Donald Trump right here. He forgets where he is, I think, already. Look at Putin. It's just some kind of nightmare. He spent a long time coughing for 20 minutes before finally saying a couple of brief words of congratulations. I don't want to say anything else, and I am not trying to take a personal dig at them, really. It's more of a dig at the society that it seems to me is completely incapable of simply standing up and saying, well, enough is enough. So I still can't quite understand why our modern society today is still so divided into those who think that, yes, a person who is 150 years old as a leader is perfectly normal, and those who say no to living in a gerontocracy, as it's called. Living in a full gerontocracy mode, they seem to think it's just great. I am still very interested in hearing your opinion here. Just as Wolland once remarked, I am interested in observing and studying people in masses. So please let us take a moment to look at you in masses. Until we meet again, goodbye.
We're giving away 3 website subscriptions every month. Just 2 simple steps. Subscribe, leave a comment, and you're in.